And the one and only, the mercurial, the wonderful, the excellent Keith Jackson. How's it going?
Just tell it as it is. The bang average. The bang average, Keith Jackson. I'm fine, thank you.
We have got a very glamorous guest joining us tonight.
I don't know about that. I think you're overdoing that as well.
Try to add a bit of spark. The one and only Tam McManus. Tam, how's it going?
I'm very well, guys. Very well. The weather's horrific, so I'm glad I'm indoors, to be honest, and not a game.
I was going to say the miracles of the internet.
I've just realised, and I've not brought my jacket with me, so I'm going to have a pleasant journey home. But there you are.
No, thanks, Tam, for joining us. We really appreciate it. I think the best place for us to start tonight is maybe on Celtic.
Yeah.
There's been kind of stories breaking across the country in the last couple of hours that maybe Adam Media moves back on, but it's another day.
Well, it's a breaking story. This is where we're getting to with this Celtic transfer window, is that the breaking story is now there's been another discussion about a move that everybody knows is going to happen anyway. It's just a matter of when are you going to have the final discussion. I don't think anybody was surprised. I think the only surprise would be if Adam Media doesn't end up at Celtic. So, you know, it's obviously been, and Celtic are really good at this. They won't pay over the odds. They'll hardball it all the way through until they get themselves into position, which they're probably in right now, where Norwich realise this guy's going to get any interest in staying here. He's not going to play for us. We're not going to get a tune out of him. We're not going to get him in the team. We need to cash in, take Celtic's offer, and you know, it's a kind of war of attrition. It'll happen in the end, whether that's today, tomorrow, or you know, in the last day of the transfer window. It's only a matter of what day it happens.
Some reported figures flying about up to £8 million. He was great last season, but what is his price? What's the barrier for Adam Media?
Tam, I'll let you field that.
No, I think he's got so much upside. I'm really friendly with Stephen Kenny from his time in Scotland, and he was obviously the Island manager, captain. He loved him. He thought,
but he was just 18 or something, wasn't
it? Yeah. He capped him very early. He thought he had everything: big, strong, powerful, quick, great left foot. You know, could score goals. You know, he thought he would do really well at Celtic, and he was right. I thought he done tremendously well at Celtic. I think he scored goals in big moments, big games. You know, the 2 goals at Easter Road when Celtic were terrible that night and came out with a 2-1 win. And obviously scoring in the cup final as well against Rangers, a massive goal that endears him to the fans. So I think 6, 7, 8 million. I think if he comes to Celtic and does well, not only domestically but in the Champions League, the age he's at, he's a perfect Celtic signing. You know, if he has a couple of good seasons, does well in the Champions League, you double your money on him. So you're right, it is a war of attrition. I think they're just, you know, Peter Lawwell's obviously playing the game. You know he knows how to play it.
Well, Peter will tell you he's got nothing to do with the transfer deals.
Yeah, well, that's what we're led to believe. And listen, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it just, listen, Celtic have traditionally went this way, whereas, you know, they lost out on John McGinn by kind of messing about. I hope that doesn't happen with Adam either. I hope somebody else in England doesn't swoop in, but it looks as if he wants to go to Celtic and he's working his ticket. But I think 6, 7, 8 million, I think it's good money for him.
Yeah, and I don't think that, you know, if they do have to go to the 8 million, I don't think that'll be a flat fee. There'll be all sorts of, you know,
add-ons and stuff.
Win the Champions League, throw a double six, etc., for it to actually get to the point that they're having to sell. I would imagine there'll be a fairly significant sell-on fee involved. But I think Tam's right. That big lad, because of his power, his physicality, just his stature as a striker, he's kind of Premier League ready, isn't he? If he can prove his worth as a goal scorer and a regular performer over a period of time, as Tam says, then the Premier League will look at him, because he's a real athlete, a proper athlete, and that it's all about power, pace, down the road, as we know. I think he just needs to hone his finishing skills a little bit. But I agree, and you know, I think we mentioned the other night, when the deal was getting done to bring him in on loan in the first instance, I was down speaking to Brendan Rodgers, and he said as soon as the list was handed in, that name jumped off the page, because I knew him, having seen him up close and personal down south. I knew what a good striker this guy could be, and I was really excited about the possibility to work with him and try and bring him on. And he was right. I actually don't think that he had a brilliant impact. I think he had a very good impact. But I look at him and I think there's so much more to come from him.
He's still only 23, of course.
Yeah.
You know, really still quite young. Obviously, it's the Hotline Live, so we've got plenty of comments to get through. I should say, if you're watching, fire your comments in the comment section below. Clara Bergman, she's saying that should have been done 6 weeks ago. Peter Sweeney, a bit more positive, amazing news, big money being spent. Kenny Wilson was saying Celtic need to loosen the purse strings and get some quality players signed. Players aren't good enough soon. It will be an utter embarrassment in the Champions League. And John Gallagher saying this, sell O'Reilly and we will now require 3+ players, a left back, a central defender, a midfielder, a forward, get a move on Celtic. And to be fair, they're not really...
I get it, and we've talked about it. I get the fans are getting frustrated here and maybe even a little bit panicky. It's fitting that the Olympics are on just now because I've done a Tom McKean and I've completely boxed myself in. You won't remember Tom McKean, by the way, Bells Hill Bullet. Tam does. He gets it. So I've boxed in because I've made it perfectly clear that I believe that Celtic will spend significant money on significant signings before the end of this window. And I base that purely on the fact that it would be completely counterproductive for them not to. They'll have an unhappy manager and an unhappy support. And what's that going to gain them going into the rest of the season? They will spend because they have to.
Yeah.
If it's even just to appease the manager, to appease the fans. And I don't think that, another raft of project signings is what's going to achieve any of that. They need to go and buy some quality. Brendan Rodgers has been screaming about it for 12 months now. Every time the window opens, he's sticking his head out of it and shouting, I need quality in here.
Yeah.
I expect him to get it.
Well, Gary Roberts has written in saying, Tam, biscuit tin board, too busy filling up their own pockets and penny pinching in players. Some supporters are too brainwashed to say it as it is. Shameful stuff as usual. And Celtic started the game, started the Premiership season at the weekend. The same team from last season, minus either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the
squad's weaker than it was at the end of last season.
I think the fans, I don't know what you think, Tam, but I think the fans are right to be a bit kind of perplexed by the summer they've had.
Yeah, I think particularly winning the league and getting that massive bounty, 50, 60 million pound, the figures are about to come out as well, which I think will increase the pressure even more on the board to spend money. So when that money comes out, Celtic are not going to be signing players for free. I mean, they'll be mutiny outside Parkhead. So no, I think the supporters are well within their rights. I think they took a chance last season, thinking that they had enough to win the league. Listen, it worked out for them to win the league, but it was very dicey at moments. I think Rangers had it in their grasp and then let it slip. And Celtic obviously came on strong at the end. I think the board are gambling on this squad just being good enough to take care of Rangers again here, which they probably will. But the supporters want to make an impact in Europe. They're sick of getting embarrassed in Europe. They want to go and make a real impact. And to do that, you need players, you need quality.
I agree with you, Tam, and that's the word that Brendan Rodgers keeps using. But when you look at it, right, despite what I've said and what I'm fairly sure is going to happen, there is an argument here. It's exactly the one that you've just outlined. How much money do you actually need to spend to make sure that you win the title next season? The answer to that is not very much. So if a decision was taken that we've got plenty here, we've got everything that's required, we're more than adequate to stay domestic champions, then why would you spend? Because you could spend £150 million on your team and you're still not going to win the Champions League next year. But I fully expect, having said all that, the common sense will be somewhere in the middle of all of that.
Aye.
They have to spend money because they'll have a very unhappy manager and an even more unhappy set of supporters, and that's why I do expect them to do something. I expect at least 2 or 3 rabbits out of the hat between now and the end of the month.
Really? As much as that, eh?
Yeah, there has to be.
Aye.
He's already said, hasn't he, that he wanted Adam Eder plus another.
Aye.
He needs competition for left back.
They need a backup left back, and Greg Taylor's deal runs out at the end of the season, which is a weird one.
They could probably do a centre half and a midfield player.
Aye.
And possibly an upgrade on one of the wings. So that's quite a...
It's a lot. It's a big, long shopping list.
So I'm not saying that they're going to cover all these positions, but I'd expect at least 3. And then, of course, you've got to factor in the whole Celtic scenario right now. what happens with Matt O'Reilly?
No.
What do you think happens with Matt O'Reilly, Tom?
Yeah, I think they'll sell him. I think Celtic will sell him. I think if somewhere comes in the region of 25 million, I don't think Celtic can turn that down. I know, listen, he's a quality player. I think he goes to England, he explodes. I think he'll do really well in the Premier League, and he could be a 40, 50 million pound player in 18 months' time. But to sign a player for 1.5 million, you know, a couple of seasons ago, he's done great. And you cannot knock back 25 million. I don't think even the Celtic supporters would knock back 25 million. It has to be a guaranteed 25. It can't be 18 plus add-ons and stuff like that. 25 million, there you go, that's our price, you know, up front, 25. And I think Celtic would take that, and it would leave massive shoes to fill. But I'm sure Brendan and the board and the recruitment team have got irons in the fire to replace him.
Well, the funny thing is, Tom, you say that 25, right? And then you said that in a couple of years he'll blow up down south and then he'll be worth 40 or 50 million. I think some Celtic supporters, and I think Brendan Rodgers kind of alluded to it the other day as well, is that, wait a minute, why should we sell at 25 knowing full well that in a year down south somebody else will probably come in and pay 40 or 50? And that is an interesting position, because Brendan Rodgers was making the comparison. He says, it's not just because the guy's playing in the Scottish Premier League doesn't mean that you're paying a Scottish Premier League price. You're not buying. It's nothing to do with the Scottish Premier League. It's the player himself, and that's an argument. And so I wonder if Celtic might hold out for a little bit more than 25. I actually think 25 would do it, but I'm wondering now if they're thinking, no, we want a Scottish record and we want it something closer to.
Well, I touched on this the other night in the Hotline Live. I don't know what you think of this, Tam, but I would start the bidding at 30 million. I would look around, and you look around Europe, look in the English Premier League, good players, but going for 100 million, 75, 80 million. I'm not saying O'Reilly is quite on that level yet, but I agree with you, Tam. He's a brilliant player. I think he could go down there, play for just about any team, really. You put him into a Tottenham or a Chelsea, I think he'd be really good.
I've mentioned that. I don't know about you, Tam, but I can't help but wonder what Ange Postecoglou's thinking. And he doesn't show his cards. But I just wonder, because there's been talk about Chelsea, there's obviously Brighton. But you just wonder, is Postecoglou just keeping a watching brief on this one and wait to see what happens? Because you tell me he doesn't fit right into that Spurs side.
Yeah, he does. I think they've obviously got James Maddison, who's probably maybe similar, plays in that area.
True.
I think Tottenham have signed, I think, 3 18-year-olds and a 19-year-old for big money. They signed, obviously, the boy Archie Gray for Leeds for 30 or 40 million. I don't know if they're going down that. They seem to be buying very young.
But he fits that profile, Tom.
Yeah, he does.
So
He does. And listen, Ange knows him inside out, you know, and I think that he would definitely be interested. But listen, Celtic are praying for a bidding war. Celtic are praying that they do come in a Chelsea.
Yeah, right.
The Liverpool have been rumoured. Then you get your 30 million. But I just think that fair play to Brendan Rodgers for speaking up about that exact subject, because too many teams from England come up and just pillage your best players. Jordan McGinn again's a great example. Went down there for buttons, and a year and a half later you're speaking 30, 40 million pounds. So I think that is right. But listen, we all know the English clubs down there, they look at our league as a backwater, and that's why they come up and they just think, oh, they'll take that. You know, and Celtic, you're right, Celtic do need to stand firm in this instance.
The frustrating thing is, I think, Tom, that you know, you look at your Van Dijks and all that, and it's almost as if, well, we're keeping an eye on this guy. We think he looks okay, but it's only Scottish football he's playing in. So they wait for a Southampton or one of the kind of middle to lower end of the Premier League to come in and take a chance and pay, you know, 12 million quid. But Liverpool's and Man United, the real big hitters down there, they actually don't care. They actually don't care if, instead of getting them for 12 or 15 or 20 million, they don't mind paying 50 million a year down the line, because they've watched him in the English Premier League and they believe, right, well, we can now see with our own eyes he's performing at that level week in, week out. So we'll just pay that money. But it's a bit mental, because I don't know anybody that watches football that doesn't look at Matt O'Reilly and see, well, that guy can go and play wherever he wants to play.
He's a top player. We should say as well, we've plenty of comments coming in. As I say, thank you and keep firing them in. Gianni DeMeo raises a very good point, which could segue us on perhaps to
What's he saying?
He says, Celtic are better with Miovski than Ida. Would you not say? And he also says, it's good to see Keith getting with the modern era. I assume he means the new Hotline Live.
He's
we know Big Gianni, didn't we? We know him anyway.
He's got a very. I was going to actually. I'm not going to say anything derogatory here. He runs a fine establishment, my favourite local Italian restaurant in the south side of Glasgow.
Excellent. Well, what do you make of his point though about Miovski? I mean, he's.
I don't listen to a word of him. I mean, honestly, you can't listen to this guy when he's talking about football.
Okay.
It's a waste of time. I mean, I might talk to him about pizza toppings, stuff like that, but Johnny and football, no.
Well, he's saying Miovski or over either. I mean, today.
Well, there you go. That's proof in point. I didn't even listen because as soon as I heard the name, I glazed over. But to say that Miovski would be a better option than Adam Ida, yeah, stick a pizza in, big man, and I'll come round and collect later. Just concentrate on it. Focus. Put your attention on your food, Gianni.
The news today, though, Tam, is that Miovski might be off to Girona. Apparently, his heart's set on them. Followed them on Instagram, which these days is always a big sign. What a move that would be. That'd be an amazing Champions League or Liga team.
Yeah, they've had a great season. I mean, they looked as if they were going to win the league at one point last season, and they fell away. But fantastic move, great city and Champions League football. I like Miovski. I think he's terrific. Celtic have got the money there. You know, they could have signed the both of them. Could have signed Miovski and Ida.
I don't rule that out.
That would have put the cat right amongst the pigeons.
I don't rule that out, Tom.
Seriously?
I really don't. I mean, why wouldn't they? They've got the money. He wants two strikers. He said it.
But why wouldn't they have done it by now? That's the thing.
Well, that is the
argument. They've offered 2 million. They're waiting to Aberdeen getting back to them.
I wouldn't rule it out. I think you.
If they did that, that'd be a blockbuster transfer window.
It'd be an extremely good one.
Aye.
I mean, we were talked about the Rangers' interest in Lawrence Shankland. Will they, won't they? Doing the hokey cokey with this one. But there's Lawrence Shankland. Miovski is the sort of equivalent for Celtic. It's a ready-made fit. It's a guy who has proved his quality in this league. And if you're playing Champions League and you know what, you might need to rest Kyogo or whatever, you can put that guy into your team. You know that if you play them in the majority of league games, he'll get you over 20 goals. You just know it already. So these two are still two to watch, and I wouldn't be entirely surprised if Celtic try to hijack something or throw a spanner into the works with that one, because they've got to have seen that this guy is just it's a no-brainer. It's a genuine no-brainer. There seems to be a reluctance, by the way, in Scotland. We're talking about English clubs not wanting to spend money in Scotland. Scottish clubs don't want to spend money in Scotland. There seems to be a reluctance that, if you go to a rival, if Rangers were to go and pay top dollar for Lawrence Shankland, well, that would be, giving our money to Hearts. And I don't get it.
I don't get that either.
It seems to be a new trend as well. They don't want to spend their own money in their own country because it might strengthen one or two other clubs. Listen, why would Celtic need to worry about strengthening Aberdeen? It's just crazy. It's crazy. You're not strengthening them. You're taking the best player away. So I wouldn't rule it out. Obviously, the interest from Italy is real, and that is significant. And maybe Miovski himself might look and say, "Well, I'd rather go and play in Serie A." But if I was Celtic, I'd ask the question. I'd want to get into the conversation.
Absolutely. Another name that's kind of invoked a big reaction today on Record Sports social media platforms is Kieran Tierney. And I don't know if you've seen this, Tam, but he's been bombed out completely from the Arsenal squad again, which, which seems a bit harsh, but we've had a lot of people kind of writing into us, talking about it. Tierney, a brilliant player, shame with injuries. I would take him back at Celtic all day. David McIdle comes back saying, wouldn't want him at Celtic, the boat's well sailed. Brilliant player, but injury prone now. If he was available, do you guys think Celtic would be interested, given they need a left back?
Yeah, I do. I do. It depends on the fee, depends on the wages.
I was just about to say, Tom.
He's on what, 70, 80 grand a week down there. No, Celtic are not going to get anywhere near that. And it is a real shame. There's a lot of rumours, before the Euros that he was possibly Celtic bound in the summer. He's picked up a bad hamstring injury, and he's been really unlucky with injuries. He'll have 2 camps. You'll have a lot of Celtic fans remember them from his first spell thinking, tremendous, great player, take him back. And a lot in the other camp thinking, no, too injury prone. We're going to be paying big wages for a guy sitting in the stand. So I get both sides of the argument, but for me, if the money's right, the wages are right, I would take him back,
Kieran Tierney would have to be just something, an emotional pull that he couldn't turn down, because he's not going to get financially anywhere close to what he's been earning. And by the way, he'll have, I'm sure, no shortage of offers, which will be there or thereabouts in terms of the wages that he's been getting at Arsenal. It's a move that he would want to have to make a financial cost to himself. You know, he'd need to take a massive wage reduction, but maybe do it for other reasons. And we know how much of a Celtic fanatic he is, and his big Celtic family. You couldn't rule that out entirely.
No.
But it is a big. He would still be probably the biggest earner at the club, and you're then going, are you going to be fit?
Maybe with Greg Taylor there, he doesn't have to be fit every week. That's maybe a good compromise. Maybe a loan deal, paying.
I don't think Arsenal are interested in doing loan deals. I think they want to recoup some money
just to get him out the door.
Yeah, but I don't understand that either. If I'm Arsenal, I'm playing him.
I think he's a brilliant player. He's a brilliant player.
I think he's a Rolls Royce, and you see him when he plays in that Scotland side, and he slots in at that left side centre. He's terrific, and his game intelligence, the way that he combines and he dovetails with Andy Robertson down that left hand side, is not only is he technically really good, but the intelligence that he's got to read a game and to know when to go and when to stay. He's popping up sometimes as a right winger in that Scotland side. I've seen it. Where's he come from?
When both of them are fully fit, I think we've got two world-class left-backs.
Yeah. So
genuinely world-class.
So if I'm Celtic, I'd be asking him the question, how much would you be looking for, and how much do you really want to come back and complete the fairy tale story about young boy that grew up as a ball boy at Celtic, who went on to have the 2 or 3 years that he did in the first team to seal this big move, to go and have the adventure that he's had. Does he want to come back to Celtic while he's still got a good bit left in the tank? It might be. A
couple of people watching at home. Jim Bruce live on Facebook saying Tierney's injury prone now, can't be paying big wages for a part-time player. But Paul Burrell says KT bring him home, and we've got Daniel Stewart who's of that mind as well. Brendan, bring him home. We will look after him. Best left back in his day in the league by miles. Outstanding under Brendan. Why not?
Well, we know why not.
We know why not. I was going to say that. We've covered the why not.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put you both in the spot now. Do you see it happening? Do you see it? Well, not anyway, but do you think he'll be back at Celtic before September 1st?
I'll let Tam answer next, but I see Kieran Tierney coming back to Celtic one day.
Aye.
I just don't think it's this day.
Aye.
I think that there's another move for him. There's another contract somewhere, and there's still time for him to. But I definitely think he wants to. Don't you, Tam?
Yeah, I think so. I totally agree with Keith. I think that it's maybe a bit early for him to come back now. I think he can stay in the Premier League in England, and I think if he's got that option, I think he'll take it and then maybe come back to Celtic in 2 or 3 years' time. But I don't see it happening in this window.
See if he stays fit, by the way. See if he goes to another Premier League club and he stays fit. I think he'll be one of the best left backs down there. They'll be talking about him and Andy Robertson as the two best left backs in the country, because they were having that conversation when he was fit and playing for regularly with that Arsenal side. In fact, they were talking about him as the next Arsenal captain at that stage. So what the beef is between him and Arteta,
that's strange.
I don't get it.
That's strange.
I don't.
Tam, we've kind of been accused on the Hotline Live recently of neglecting Hibs a little bit, and so we thought, who better to have on than a Hibs expert and Tam McManus. So I thought it'd be best that we get dive into all things Easter Road. David Gray started really well in the Premier Sports Cup, a couple of good wins. Obviously then ran into Celtic Hearts, and then at the weekend obviously lost 3-0 to St Mirren. On the performance itself, I know we were talking off air, I think Hibs actually did really well in the first half but couldn't score. But after it, David Gray was saying the second half was completely unacceptable. And I'd sort of said to Keith earlier, when a manager starts kind of using adjectives like unacceptable, kind of, I don't know, alarm bells start ringing for me anyway as a fan. I mean, first day of the season, he's kind of saying it's unacceptable. What did you make of it, Tom?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think any name with hearts in it, Hibs seem to. I wasn't surprised that Celtic beat us. But no, I think that, listen, in terms of the League Cup campaign, watched all the games. Queen's Park, really impressive. You know, looked as if they were playing at a different tempo from before. You know, high press, players look fitter. And I thought Hibs might be onto something here. Then a disaster result at Celtic. Bounce back, comfortable win, but Peterhead, no disrespect to them. And then the first real test is St Mirren. Watched the game, I thought for the first 45 minutes, Hibs played a lot of good football. Once they got to the final third, they just didn't have a cutting edge. Martin Boyle just seems a yard off it. Dylan Vente has not justified the big price tag. And I think he could be out the door shortly as well with the two strikers coming in. So I think that the business that Hibs have done in the last week will strengthen them. They obviously signed 2 centre-halves in the summer, which they had to do.
Mhm.
They were dreadful at the back all season. They signed the goalkeeper, decent experience as well for a young keeper. So that was the key areas that they were done early doors. And then strikers, he's brought Kukarevich back in for Swansea, who had a good spell at Hibs. And they've signed Kieran Tierney today. So in a 4-year contract, paid a decent 6-figure fee. They've got Nicky Cadden in as well, winger, Junior Hoylett. So they're starting to just, put the pieces together of a decent team, but they've got to prove it on the pitch. And they've got Celtic back-to-back next, and that's a disaster of a start. If you lose those 2 games, you're out the cup as well. And that Kelty Hearts result cost Hibs, top spot in one of the seasons, and end up running into Celtic. So it was a disaster result all round. So listen, the Hibs supporters need to see some improvement. Can't possibly be any worse than last season. Last season was a nightmare. 2 managers, bottom 6, disaster of a season. But I think the players they've brought in, look good. But the time to judge Hibs might be after the next 2 games, because I don't see them getting a result against a Celtic team in the next 2 games. You're
telling that there's a thing there, that they can't possibly have as bad a season as last season. Hibs, hold my beer. Because you mentioned that, and the 2 games are coming up against Celtic. You actually couldn't make that up. That you started the season with a defeat at St Mirren. It's a heavy defeat. It's a morale-damaging defeat. And if you look at the Premier League table, I know we're only 1 game in, they're sitting in 11th place because of that result. And the only reason it's not 12th is because Kilmarnock are beneath them. And the only reason Kilmarnock are beneath them is because they had to go to Celtic.
Yeah.
And now Hibs have the unfortunate scenario of having to play Celtic on 2 back-to-back Sundays. And I think you said it, if you take a couple of sore ones there, the mood around the place is going to be close to toxic by the time the next pull their boots on. And I get the feeling, you tell me, but I get the feeling not all Hibs fans were completely buying into the David Gray appointment, even as it was being made. So if you're sitting at that point, anchored to the bottom of the league with 2 defeats, out the League Cup, as Tam said, because you can beat with Kelty Hearts, that doesn't sound to me as if it's going to be a pleasant experience for anyone involved.
No, I don't think it will. I think that the eyes are starting to look, upwards in terms of the board. I think that's been the general consensus over the last 2 seasons, hiring and firing the managers. The recruitment's been dire, and all of that has been leading to Hibs hemorrhaging money. Paying off managers, bringing players in. New manager comes in, doesn't want his players. He wants his own players, and you've now got a mismatch of 3 or 4 different managers in the squad. So it's going to take time. It's going to take patience with David Gray. But the Hibs fans have not got patience. I've played there for 7-8 years. They're not a patient support. They want to see. They want to see winning football. Well, it's at the bench for it. But they're not a patient support, particularly with Hearts doing so well in group group stage football.
Yeah.
And great result against Rangers. Hearts look really, really strong this season, and that's even worse for Hibs supporters. So
it makes it intolerable, doesn't it?
It makes it intolerable, and that puts the pressure even more on David Gray. But I think that a lot of the Hibs fans, you're right, didn't really want David Gray, but they've tried everything. They tried the young and up-and-comer with Sean Maloney, didn't work. They went down to England for an experienced manager, Lee Johnson. They went to the other side of the world and get Nick Montgomery in. That didn't work. Now they're thinking, right, we need to get somebody that knows the club and knows the city and the players and stuff, and that's David Gray. They've got Malky and above him, who I'm sure will help him. But yeah, I think there was a general apathy at the start of the season about Hibs. But now with the signings coming in, I think that you can maybe see a wee bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and then you've got the 2 games coming up. So listen, it's all up there. I don't know.
I was thinking earlier on, what do you think, Tam, constitutes a good season for Hibs? Because I think automatically you go, well, they need top 6, but I think Hibs have got so much potential. You might aim higher than top 6, surely.
I think top 6 this season. Honestly, I wouldn't aim any higher than that. I just think that the last season was so bad. 2 of the last 3 seasons, Hibs have been in the bottom 6. It's just not acceptable. So I think when you get in the top 6, you've seen Dundee, St Mirren last season. I don't think there'll be a lot in it come the split. So you can still get into Europe. You can still get 4th or 3rd, maybe. if you're not in the top six, obviously you can't. So I think you get in the top six first. You think to yourself, right, we need to get this club back in the top six again. Get in that, get in that argument for Europe, and then take it from there. I wouldn't put any other. Honestly, I don't think that the Hibs can be aiming for third. I think Hibs are miles ahead of Hearts. Hearts are miles ahead of Hibs at the minute in terms of a settled squad. The manager, knowing the players, the buzz around the place, the money they're going to get from that European group stage, the squad depth. I think they're miles ahead of Hibs at the minute. So I don't think you can use Hearts as a barometer for Hibs. I think you've got to look at Kilmarnock or St Mirren and try and get up beside them this season.
But Tam, you're right. But that's where the problem lies, isn't it? Because everything you said there, Hearts are miles ahead in terms of the squad that they're building, in terms of where they're at just now. But in the heads of the Hibs supporters, they will start every season saying we should be the third best team in Scotland, and that's just a natural position that no amount of facts in front of their face is ever going to change it.
Aye.
They will feel that they should be the third best team in the country. So I agree. I think need to temper expectations, temper the targets a little bit. Tam's right. First things first for Hibs this season, get into the top six and then take it from there.
Right.
But that won't change the kind of level of expectation among the supporters who will, as I said, start every season thinking, well, third place has to be a realistic target.
I'm going to put you both in the spot. This is what I like to do, Tam. This is a theme of the Hotline Live. I'll start with Keith this time, though. Do you have faith in the David
Just
Gray?
ordering a pizza for Gio.
Aye, for Gio. Do you have faith that David Gray will turn out to be the right appointment at Easter Road? So that's a tough one, to be fair. One game into the season,
hope.
but
I'll tell you, I'll answer it by saying I hope so.
aye.
But I do feel as if I was in that situation, I'd probably want tried and tested. There's an element of risk with David Gray, but I really hope it works out for him because, by all accounts, he's a great guy, and he's got a great standing with the club. It would be a fantastic story for him to be the guy that didn't just win them the Scottish Cup, but went on to become a real established, successful manager. I kind of go back to what Tam was saying. They've tried this, they've tried that, they've tried the next, this solution, that solution. See, when everything's fallen down, every solution that you've tried, none of them work. That points to something else. That maybe it's not the man in the manager's office that's the problem at Hibs.
It's people picking him, maybe.
Well, and perhaps the way the club has been run in general, which might make it impossible for a guy like David Gray or anybody else to really thrive. And that would be my worry, that there's something running deeper behind the scenes at Hibs that make it a job that, actually, I know some managers that might have been involved in conversations about potentially going to Hibs at some point over the last while. And there's various red flags that they talk about that make that a job that, as attractive as it would be, because big club, great city, it'd be fantastic if you can get them on the up. You're the guy to do that. What a fantastic. But if you feel there are red flags which might make that next to impossible to achieve, then you just become the next guy who tried, failed, and gets sacked.
Would on paper, Tam, we touched on it. The signings they made look really good. I think Hoylett's a good addition. Kieran Bowyer looks like a really promising player. They've paid a bit of money for him. How do you feel about David Gray? Do you think he's got what it takes to be a success?
I hope so. Like Keith, nobody knows it's his first job. He's not got a track record of doing well or being successful or being unsuccessful. It's a bit of an unknown. One thing you're going to get for David Gray, you're going to get a team that's going to be working hard. They're going to be committed to the cause. That's what he was like as a player. I think he's got, from what I hear within the dressing room, I think he's got the full respect to the players, not only for what he's achieved as a player at the club, but the way he talks to people, the way his man management skills are. That hasn't been the case in the last couple of managers. So I think he ticks a lot of boxes. He knows the club, but listen, football's about results. He's got to get results. And as I said earlier, there's not a lot of patience. Patience is wearing thin at Easter Road. They want to see the team doing well. They want to see him going up, competing with Hearts again. So I really hope he does well. I think Malky will help him, in terms of recruitment and maybe taking a bit of heat off him, speaking to agents and stuff like that. And David can concentrate purely on coaching the team. I think the players are brought in: Hoylett, Kukarevich, Nicky Cadden, Kieran Bowie's a young player who has got great potential as well. The two centre backs have brought in the goalkeeper. I think he strengthened the areas they had to strengthen, and now just let them go out and see how they do. But as I said to you, the next 2 games are going to be really difficult. There's not a lot of pressure on Hibs. I think Celtic are expected to win both games and both games comfortably. So on one hand, if Celtic, if Hibs go out and get battered twice, the confidence could be absolutely shattered. But if Hibs go out and actually compete and do well, and maybe lose narrowly, or maybe nick something out those games, then you start to look up the table rather than down the way. But we'll have to wait and see.
The thing is, Tam's looking at this understandably through the old green and white glasses, and desperate for Hibs to get back to a competitive level. In a more general context, though, it'd be brilliant for Scottish football, because we need, for our game to thrive, we need our biggest clubs to be punching their weight, and Hibs just haven't been doing that on anywhere near a regular basis for way too long. We need them. If they can start landing punches and really making themselves, their presence felt in the Premiership, then we've got a better league. We're all the better for it. Of course, if the crowds come back, if the place is on a high, if there's a real intense rivalry between Hibs and Hearts because they're both going at it, that's really, really good for our game in general. So, I wish David Gray nothing but luck. I suspect he might need it.
Aye, we've got a big season ahead. Just before we finish, we've been a bit Rangers heavy on the Hotline Live last couple of nights, but with a couple of comments in, Keith, reacting to your fleeting mention of Shankland a little earlier on. Rangers easy okay. Is it not maybe, Keith, that Rangers can get Shankland on a pre-contract in 5 months? Is that maybe why they're holding out?
Yeah, but they've got a league to win this season.
True, fair point.
So yeah, of course they can get him for free.
To the point now.
But you've got to try and prioritise, and Rangers are talking a lot about project players and players that will achieve decent value in the transfer market a couple of years down the line. That's all very well and good, but it's just like we're talking about David Gray. We're talking about you're going into 2 games against Celtic, and if you get a thrashing in the 2 of them, then you're going to come right under pressure. Philip Coman is in a position, never mind the fact that he signed a 4-year contract, he needs to, as well as plan for something in the future, he has to deal with the here and the now. And by the way, many people will point to the fact that if they'd spent a bit of money in getting Shankland out in January, they might not be trying to get into the Champions League through the qualification door just now. They might have made that money in straight cash, and Shankland would have paid for himself 10 times over.
Fair point, Tam. What do you think?
Yeah, totally agree with that. I thought that the Rangers would have pushed the boat out in January. I thought they were in a position of strength where they were neck and neck with Celtic. Celtic weren't playing particularly well at the time. I thought they were there for the taking at that point. And I think Rangers would have made a real statement to their supporters and to the rest of the squad by bringing Shankland in, paying the money that Hearts wanted. And you're right, it was so close towards the end, and Rangers dropped points. Motherwell at home, Dundee away, Ross County, and then lost at Parkhead. I think that Shankland could have been the difference. And Keith's right, that could have been 50-60 million pound for the sake of paying 4 or 5 in January. So I don't think Shankland will go to Rangers now. Me personally, I think that he'll see his contract out at Hearts, and I think he'll take his chances on a free at the end of the season. I think he'll back his Celtic score another 20-25 goals for Hearts.
Did you go into a situation like that, Tam, during your time where you were running your contract down? Because just to get inside the mind of the footballer, there has to be an element of worry there, doesn't there? That my contract's actually up. What happens if I get injured here? What happens if I'm out for 6 months and I'm winded down my contract and I'm the forgotten man by the time the window opens back up?
Yeah, listen, it's a chance you take. It's a risk you take. It's worked for some players. It's not worked for others. Me myself, that's never really happened to me in that situation when I've had to run a contract down. But when you're out of contract, it is a worry. When you're looking and you're saying, "By the way, I'm out of contract in 3 months, 6 months' time. I hope I don't get in." You don't think about that when you're on the pitch. But for Lawrence, I think he'll just be single-minded. I think that his goal-scoring record at Hearts, he's a real hero amongst the supporters there. I don't think he'll sign another deal at Hearts. I think I think he'll. For me personally, I think for him, he would just say, right, let's just go and get another 20-25 goals this season. And then at the end of the season, you can go and take your pick as a free agent, and you get that one big move, that one big payday that he's reserved from coming from. Not getting a game at Aberdeen, release St Mirren, bouncing about. Ayr United, McCall took a chance on him, really got him going again. I think he deserves it. I think he's worked his backside off to get into this position, to say to himself, right, at the end of the season, I'm going to get myself big money.
And no one would bet against him scoring 25, 30 goals again this season.
Yep.
Definitely not.
No, and it's not even just the goals with Lawrence Shankland. It used to be just the goals with Lawrence Shankland. Over the last 2 or 3 seasons, his improvement in his all-round game has been dramatic.
Aye.
In terms of his hold-up play, his link
Just
play,
on Sunday there, he was...
his vision, to slot into that number 10.
Aye.
I don't think he did particularly his best game against Rangers at the weekend there, but there's probably a number of factors feeding into that. But he's smart enough to play a deeper role. He's never blessed with searing pace, unlike Tam. But his game intelligence and the various factors around what he contributes as a goal scorer, but above and beyond that, I think he's come on leaps and bounds. He's actually almost unrecognisable from the player that he was 5 years ago. That tells you a lot about how much hard work he's put into improving his game.
Aye, absolutely. I think that brings us to the end of today's Hotline Live. Tam, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Oh, you can come back, Tam.
I was going to say, come back in the flesh next time.
Will do.
I should say, thanks for all the comments. If you've sent one in, if you want to get involved, we'll be back not tomorrow, but on Sunday's show.
Yeah.
After the aforementioned Hibs and Celtic game, you can email us at hotline@dailyrecord.co.uk.
And we want you to come on with your hot takes right after that game, because we'll be on reasonably early after the final whistle to find out what the mood is. And I rather suspect it might be a bit gloomy over on Tam's side of the country there, but there you are.
Time will tell. Tam, thanks again.
Cheers, guys.
And thanks for watching. Cheers.
Cheers, Tam.